Welcome to the Geniuses of Copywriting podcast, a peek into the minds and strategies of the world's greatest copywriters, marketers, and persuasion experts. And now, here's your host, Brian Casangina.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Geniuses of Copywriting podcast. Today we've got a really interesting guest because I've got here a guy who doesn't really seek the limelight, a guy who doesn't position himself as the guru, as so many of us copywriters do. What he's doing, he's just in the trenches. He's doing the work. He's making the money, especially for his clients. So I'd like to welcome to the call $1 Million Mike Morgan. I really appreciate you jumping on and having a chat with us today.
Hey Brian, how you doing, man? Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative you joining us because it's not something you normally do. So to everybody listening to
this, something I try to avoid doing.
Yeah, preferably. And so that's why I really appreciate it. Anyone who's listening really needs to listen well because this is a rare opportunity to get inside your mind.
Well,
so I wanted to start off by people who don't know your story. How did you get into copywriting? How did you get to doing the work that you're doing now?
I've done a lot of things in my life. I've been like a scuba diving instructor. Had a bicycle shop and ski shop. And I was in the brokerage business for 11 years. I started the first ever online bond brokerage back in 1997, sold that, got ripped off, became an executive recruiter. I hated it. I was making good, more than six figures, but I really hated it. And I've been signed up for selfimprovement.com. This is about the time, 2004, when online was kind of just coming on good. And there's a lot of good stuff you could subscribe to. And selfimprovement.com basically sent me the AWAI letter one day in my email. And I read that thing and I was like, man, this sounds like it's right for me. I hadn't written in years, but I love to write. And part of it was I've been a salesman basically all my life. And it was like, after I'd go and do a sales call or whatever, or made a sales call, cold calling or whatever, I'd always do like a postmortem, what could I have done better? Even if I got an account or, made a trade, what could I have done better? And I thought, gosh, writing, man, I'm going to be able to write a pitch and then I can go and I can edit it. And heck, I can even do this testing thing and I can figure out if this works better than this. Yeah. And I thought that sounds pretty cool. And I read that letter, 3 or 4 times. And I don't know, it seemed a little hypey to me that you could make so much money writing copy. And of course, there's the dream of, doing it from the beach and all this stuff, the way that a good copywriter writes that. So one day I was just I was super curious about it. And I decided, I'm going to talk to my wife about it. So I talked to my wife and I'm like, it sounds perfect for me. And here it is. It's like another complete reinvention of myself. And, gosh, I really think this sounds good, but it sounds a little hypey. She's like, well, why don't you email a bunch of copywriters and find out if it is? And so I wrote 10 copywriters and about 3 of them wrote me back. And basically, in a nutshell, here's what they told me. Yes, you can make that kind of money. A lot of people try though, and few people make it.
Yeah.
And I thought, that sounds about like my kind of odds. So I became a copywriter. I bought the AWAI course, and then, I got some mentoring from Harlan Kilstein, and then from Carlton, and then from long spell with David Garfinkel. And, gosh, my career just took off, Gosh, it was less than a year, and I'd written my first $1 million letter.
Nice. Is that when the nickname came about, or is that just the
Actually, yeah. I was being mentored by David Garfinkel, and I did this big launch for a guy named Ewan Chia that lives in Singapore. He's an affiliate marketer. And I wrote his sales letter, and I actually negotiated royalties on it. And we made like $1 million in about 36 hours.
Nice.
And then David Garfinkel, who is mentoring me, he wrote a blog post about it, and he's like, I dubbed this guy $1 Million Mike.
It's so interesting that Garf is the one to come up with that. I think he's been on the show twice already. So.
Oh, yeah? I love Garf. Not only was he a great mentor for me, we've become, fabulous friends.
Yeah. We have been online as well, but I've never met him in person. But that'll change soon. So that's really interesting. Have you ever really gone down the path of being the copy guru, or have you always been the guy behind the scenes?
A few years after I started writing copy, and I'd had, tons of success, I did my own launch. I did a copywriting course. I had, 11,000 people signed up for a webinar.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I was doing a launch, it was my first time ever doing a launch, writing the copy and all that stuff, no sweat. I had all that done. But the day before the webinar, I had a friend of mine, Sterling Valentine, who was going to be my MC. And he's like, so, how much time have you put in on your webinar? I was like, well, I put 0 time in my webinar. So we winged it, and the thing was a freaking disaster. I think I made like 3 sales.
Wow. And
I went home, and man, I was bummed out. And I thought, God, I did a ton of work on this thing, and I'm going to pull it out. And I'm a freaking writer, so I'm just going to write my way out of this.
Yeah.
And I wrote an email the next day that was, basically told everybody, hey, I wasn't prepared for that. I totally sucked. But, I'm not a talker. I'm a writer. And if you want to learn writing, then I'm the guy. And man, I got a buttload of people to sign up. In fact, I kept working that whole angle. And by the end of it, I had, 100 people, a little over 100 people signed up at over $1,000 a piece.
Wow.
So I did that. And then I've done a few other things too. But since I've got in with writing for Agora companies, my time has been a lot more precious to me. And I feel like if I'm going to teach something, I want to teach something new, at least a new angle on the old thing. And I did that once with copy thinking. I think you were in that. You might have been in that.
Yeah. I'm in something of that.
Yeah, where I talked about like the big idea and all the the process of writing a big like Agora level promo.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like really being more of a writer is a good thing. I mean, man, as a copywriter, working for an Agora company, a one guy shop, he can earn as much as a guy who owns $1 million company.
Yeah, exactly right. A lot less
in fact,
stress.
A lot more than a guy who makes $1 million company.
Yeah.
In fact, as much as $1 million. I know copywriters who have made $1 million in a year.
Yeah.
So, I'm really focused in on that right now.
Yeah. There's a few names, big names at Agora in different companies who I'd love to get on the show sometime who, are getting a reputation of really earning big money with Agora, with these big winners. And that's something that I think a lot of people, misunderstand when we talk about writing for a company versus running your own business. Some people think that if you're writing for a company, that's like somehow lesser of a thing because being a guru is so worshipped these days. You have to be the guru and have to run the $1 million company, be hustling 24/7. But I wrote copy the same way for Mindvalley for 3 years, and while they don't pay as well as Agora, it was still a lot of fun, and it was a great adventure. So So it's a great way to do it as well.
Yeah.
So the other thing that is a question for people outside your Agora system, is about all the different Agora companies. The one that you're with is Money Map Press. Is that right?
Yeah, Money Map Press. Yeah. A lot of people don't, they look at Agora as like one company. Yeah. And Agora is like, 20 companies.
Yeah.
20 companies, all separately run, all separately managed with their own way of doing things. And if you think that one company does, or if you think every company does things the way that one company does, you're sorely mistaken. And I've worked for 3 different Agora companies. And for me, Money Map Press is by far the best fit.
Why is that the particular way they do things?
Well, first of all, they're really set up well for remote workers. They've got a whole infrastructure that they've built where you can get to things easy. Like when I was writing for Agora Financial, if I wanted testimonials, I had to ask someone for testimonials. Yeah. And it might take me a week to get them. Here at Money Map, it's like, I want testimonials. I go to our little intraweb and bam, I find every testimonial that's ever been written about the guru. I go there, I can find every promo that was been written for the guru. I mean, we're just so well supported that way. Plus, then I've got people checking in with me and working with me. And I worked for Agora Financial, and there you're pretty much a one-man band. Mm-hmm. You're doing everything. When you're done, you like send in your copy and they'll look it over. They might suggest a couple of changes, and then boom, your promo's going into legal, and then it starts to go, and nobody tells you how it's doing really. They will. If it's going good, they'll call you up and they'll say, hey, you got a hit. But there's just like really minimal contact. And at Money Map, it's like, man, they support you to the hilt. And a lot of these promos, like I just finished a promo, and it's over 2 million now here in about a month. They're always telling me how it's doing. Plus, I've got the tools to go and look and see how it's doing. And they're all, putting that whole promo together too. It was, instead of me being a one-man band, I'm like, I have other people that I can lean on, other really smart people. I mean, all the way to the freaking top of Money Map. Wow. That are helping me with my promo so it'll be successful. And it's a huge difference.
Yeah. So you're really part of a team there, and everyone's working together. That was something that we had at Mind Valley as well. There's a lot of support, but in the same way, but that sounds like an awesome place to work.
Yeah, it really is. And plus I get to work with a lot of the younger copywriters there. A lot of them come to me for advice all the time. Yeah. And I really enjoy working with these younger copywriters too. So, in fact, the other day I was wrapping up with my writing partner, Terry, and Terry's like a copy coordinator there, basically. Yeah. And one of the younger copywriters came in there, to go over some stuff. And Terry's like, hey, Mike, you want to help me go over a bunch of stuff with him? And I was like, sure. And I really enjoyed working with him. And not only that, got him a lot better idea for the advertorial he was working on.
Yeah, awesome. So what is one of the big things that you find that up-and-coming copywriters need help with, and how do you help them with that particular area? What's one of the big things that you train them on?
Probably it's one of the most underappreciated things in copy, but it's the most important thing. And that is coming up with a great big idea. Gosh, I'll tell you a story about how this really got pounded into my head. I was Mark Joyner's copywriter for a long time.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I was writing a piece of copy for a copywriting course that was done by Joe Sugarman and Ted Nicholas.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I was nervous as hell, writing this copy. And Joyner's like, I'm about to throw you in the lion's den. And and my copy was really super rough draft, very, very bad. There was not really a great idea that was holding it all together because I still hadn't come up with it. And we got on a call with Ted and Mark and Joe. And I'd met Joe before, so Joe and I knew each other. Mark and I knew each other. I'd never met Ted before. And Ted looked at the copy and he's like, this is not going to do. And Joe looked at it and he's like, yeah, it's really not very good copy. We need to start all over. Anyway, after that, it was like, I really fucked up on the big idea. Excuse me for dropping an F-bomb.
Oh, good.
But I'm sure I'm not the first guest to do that.
Not at all.
So I really screwed up on the big idea. And after that, it was like, man, I was on quest, to come up with better ideas all the time. The other thing that I think that younger copywriters don't do well enough is that they're writing a draft and then they're working on improving their draft. I'll tell you, I've been writing for 16 years now, almost, or on my 16th year. And even my first drafts suck. They're horrible, but they're a good, they're a start. And I might get 20% out of my first draft that I can, use. And I still need to rework it and rewrite it. And I'd written a promo with Paris on Papyrus, and it was I think it was the sixth draft or something like that he's finally okay, we're done. People don't appreciate that writing is not writing. Rewriting is writing.
That's very true. And it's like a thing where you have to be you have to be freaking bulletproof to those critiques of your copy. You have to. This is something that I struggled with when I started writing copy, because I learned all the principles and I thought I knew everything, and then when people would come in and look at my copy, I did my initial copy mentoring with the toe cracker Trevor Crook, and he would come in and tear it to shreds, and you have to be able to take that feedback on board, and that's how you improve your copy. Is that something that you find?
Any successful writer, they let all that criticism, and it's not really criticism, when you're getting feedback from another writer, he's there trying to help you make it better. Yeah. Right? You got to get your ego out of the way. And I'll tell you, I've had some vicious critiques before. David Deutsch is the best at giving a very sarcastic and wicked critique on you. That really makes you think, but you can't get your feelings hurt over it. I'll tell you, every writer out there gets feedback, and if they keep their ego out of it, that feedback can make their product better.
Yeah, definitely. It's always improved by a fresh set of eyes, copywriting.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you can tell us about how an up-and-coming copywriter could get into one of the Agora companies, or into a position where they're able to write these kinds of winners? I mean, other than being super awesome at copywriting like you?
Well, there's two ways.
Yeah.
First way is you can go in-house.
Yeah.
And a lot of these Agora units, they're looking for copywriters. They're actively always looking for copywriters. They're looking for in-house young in-house guys who they can train up, and then they're looking for more experienced writers. So the best way for a young guy who's maybe got 2 or 3 years on his own, that's not near enough to be unless you've written a bunch of $1 million promos. you don't have a chance at being an outside writer. But you do have a chance to be an inside writer. And you can learn a hell of a lot that way. The other way is the way that I did it. And that was, I got into some other niches. When I got into copy, I wanted to be an Agora guy from the get-go, but I fell into working in the entrepreneurial market. And I was like one of the go-to guys writing for, all the big cheeses that were doing web launches, back in the, 2005 to 2008 or so, before the market fell to crap. And so I got in there and I've written a ton of really great promos, $1 million promos, $5 million promos, $9 million promos, $12 million promos, $17 million promos on these kind of products. And the other thing that I had going for me too was that I knew finance because I was in the stock brokerage business.
Yeah.
And I got into Agora Financial because it was like 2009. They had no writers. There hardly any writers, I should say.
Yeah.
They had Jack Ford, who's a freaking great writer. But he was the only great writer they had. I got referred to them, and at first I was kind of busy. He wanted me to jump through some hoops, and I jumped through a couple of hoops, and I was like, I'm too busy for this stuff right now. I'll get back to you. And I wrapped up my stuff, and I really thought about what I wanted to do. And I wanted to get in at the Agora level. So I wrote the guy back, and I was like, so what do I need to do? Have David Deutsch write you an email that says that you should hire me? And he's like, no. By then he found out I was $1 Million Mike, and he's like, let's do a project. And we did the first project, and the first project, it was so-so. It didn't beat the control. And then he's like, I don't care about that. I really liked working with you, and I think we ought to do one more project. And I said, okay. And then it became like one of my best projects I've ever done. It was a 3D printing promo that everybody calls it Click Print Gun. It got like 20,000 names and made a couple $1 million, and it was a front end thing. And that really got me going in the world of Agora.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know that going back to Mindvalley again, they're a great a learning company for copywriters. When I first joined Mindvalley, I had already been writing copy for 10 years then, and I'd had a lot of success. But even then, it was a great learning experience. They have their core team in the office. They do have some remote writers around the place, but the main core team is in that office the same way that Agora Financial does it. But a lot of other companies, big companies around that value copy now are doing more of a money map model where you can work remotely. So that's really interesting too.
I know for a couple of years, Mindvalley used one of my courses as like one of their big things for copywriters. In fact, Kenneth Yu took that course, and it was like immediately writing good copy.
Yeah. What's the name of that?
I'm sorry?
What was the name of the course?
Let's see. That was My Magic Offer. I had this, I talked all about how the offer is like one of the most important things, and all the things you could do to make the offer better. Because if you have a really great offer, your copy doesn't have to be so good.
True.
And then in there, I also had this little template of how to write a sales letter, a long form sales letter. And that became kind of their template for a long time.
Yeah. They have so many great copywriting trainings at that company,
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. I remember the office is just the books and courses all around everywhere. I got to sit down and read some of the stuff that they had. They had a lot of online stuff as well. So it was a kind of a similar experience. I really appreciate you sharing all this stuff with me. I know it's not something that you like you said, you try to avoid it, but I've been sort of cajoling you and encouraging you to get.
Oh yeah, and you've been a great guy and a good friend of mine on Facebook for years, and we've like interacted, and you've been a student of mine, and it's just like, man, I wouldn't say no to you.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it.
One of the few people.
Yeah, yeah, so it's really been awesome. You are a genius of copywriting, and I look forward to catching up. Next time I go to the States, we'll have to hang out and have a drink.
Cool, man. I'd love that.
Yeah, not a problem. So if anyone, I know you don't have really a guru type of offer or anything, but I know you mentioned something before we were talking beforehand, and this is only for working copywriters, people who are serious about this, who are already working. How do they find you online?
Well, I'm on Facebook. It's facebook.com/$1,000,000 Mike. If I usually don't let people in that I haven't met. If you're a writer though, I'd like to connect with you. But you need to like message me and say, hey, Mike, I saw you on Brian's podcast and I'd love to connect. And then you can connect. Another way though, I just remembered this and we talked about it. I do have a little product that's out there. I don't make any money on this. All the money goes to my niece. My niece had a kidney transplant. What was it? Like a couple of years ago, I think. And she's doing great right now, but she still has a lot of expenses because her medication is so high. And I put a little course together that I did, a little benefit for her. And all the money goes to her. And you can find that at $1,000,000mike.marketing.
.marketing. Is that the one that I joined up as well back in the day, a couple of years ago? Yeah. And that was awesome too.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Yeah. And my niece, like I said, she's doing great.
Oh, good to hear.
She's like back to work and everything, but still medication is a lot. I got her enough to last for, a year and a half or something like that. And every little bit helps. And I'll probably re-promote that thing here in another few months.
Yeah. I'm definitely down to helping you do that. It's just got a lot more interesting because that's an amazing course, that is, if I can speak properly. I joined that course. I jumped right into it without hesitation when you promoted it a couple of years ago. It's really awesome news that she's doing well. But like you say, everything costs a lot of money when you have these kinds of health challenges. So
money.
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for anybody who wants to get something out of you and help your niche at the same time. $1,000,000mike.marketing.
And you notice a lot of things we talked about today that we kind of glossed over. Yeah. We go way deeper in that product.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So if you're listening on iTunes, then I will drop a link to this on geniusesofcopywriting.com, or you can just go to $1,000,000mike.marketing and everything's there. That's super awesome. So I'm very glad to do what I can to promote that offer.
Thanks, man.
No, not a problem, Mike. Thanks again. Like I said, you are a genius of copywriting. Great offer at $1,000,000mike.marketing. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Geniuses of Copywriting with Brian Casangina. To get the full transcript and all the resources mentioned on today's show, go to www.geniusesofcopywriting.com now.